Hey everyone, happy Thursday, November 20th. It's about 10:45 on the West Coast and it's time for another market update. Well, it's been a busy week in the markets. We've got a lot of narrative coming out of the Fed. We got some new data release or old data release now that the government shutdown has ended. So let's get right into it. Starting with the Fed. Yesterday we got the Fed minutes from their previous meeting. That was in October. And like again, this is just the meeting, the minutes from their meeting, basically seeing what they talked about at their last meeting. And there's more of a hawkish tone. We'd rather have them have more of a dovish tone, which means maybe cutting rates, easing rates. Most think they are still too restrictive. However, they're not quite sure when they should cut. That seemed to be the biggest debate is not if they cut in the future, but when they cut and whether or not they cut at that December 10 meeting. So a majority seem to be in the category of not wanting to cut at the December 10 meeting. Some are in favor of that meeting or cutting at that meeting, but it's really going to come down to the data going forward. But so this wasn't necessarily the best thing to see that they were leaning that direction already because obviously we want them to cut in December. However, again, this is a little bit dated. This is going back to October. However, a little bit newer comments from the Fed, have happened since that meeting. A lot of these voting and non-voting members across, from all the different Feds, so Boston, KC, St. Louis, Atlanta, Dallas, Cleveland, and Minneapolis, all seem to be in favor of not cutting rates. Whether it is they're afraid of inflation, they think the job market's strong, whatever the case may be, it seems like a vast majority of the members that are speaking, at least, are not in favor of cutting rates, which we don't want to hear because these are the people that are going to vote on it coming up on December 10th. So that wasn't good. This hasn't been good to see. And obviously, this is affecting the narratives in the markets as the markets see these comments being made, that the chance of that cut in December 10th have gotten, slimmer and slimmer. It started before that Fed meeting at about 90% chance they cut, and now we're down to 40%. It's actually more in favor that they won't cut at this point, which we don't want to see. So the way that will change, would be for the data. If we get jobs data, inflation data to make the Fed, speakers say, hey, we do need to cut rates. So the first thing we got, again, this is dated information. We got the September BLS jobs report. So this is the big jobs report going back to the month of December, September. Normally we would get this in October, but again, the government shut down, so we didn't see this information. So again, the first part we get in this report is we get a businesses establishment survey where they take some numbers from payroll and they exploit it out using some math, gymnastics, and they came up with seasonally adjusted. There was about 119,000 jobs created. The estimate was 50,000, so that shows more strength in the job market, which we didn't want to see. Again, want to see people having jobs and things like that. But again, the stronger these numbers look, the more likely it is the Fed will not cut their rates. So as you can see, the numbers were propped up by healthcare, bars and restaurants, government. One thing though, they did make negative revisions, like we've talked about. They keep doing this to the months of July and August of a total of 33,000 less jobs created than they originally reported. And then the other part I want to touch on is, when they come up with this number for this business establishment survey, they use what they call the birth death model. So that's basically counting how many jobs they say were created by new companies starting and how many jobs went away by old companies closing. And this number has propped these numbers up quite a bit. It's been a big positive number most of the time. And that's been pretty suspect. So they've announced that they're going to come up with a new model, a new data, way of looking at this data starting in January, and so we'll get that for the February BLS jobs report. So hopefully that's a little bit more accurate going forward, because again, that's been propping up these numbers quite a bit and probably making the job market look stronger on paper than it actually has been. The second part they get out of these the BLS jobs is the household survey. So this is actually where they call people, say, hey, do you have a job? Are you looking for a job? Things like that. And that ticked up from 4.3 to 4.44. It gets announced as 4.4, but as you can see, it's really close because they round up to the 10th, but it's really close to being 4.5. So that would have looked even weaker. There's about 251,000 jobs created. The labor force, though, jumped by 470,000. So that's why the unemployment went up, even with the job creations. One positive for the economy, it looks like there was 673,000 full-time jobs created, and part-time work went down. So that would indicate people getting more full-time jobs and less part-time jobs, which would be positive for the economy because obviously we'd all rather work full-time than part-time. And then the next part about employment that we got this week was ADP came out with their 3 month rolling average of their private sector payroll stuff, and that's at, just for the month of October, that's at about 3,333 jobs on average over the last 3 months, rolling average. Where you go back to November of 2024, that was at 206,000. So 203,000 difference, big difference there. So again, doesn't necessarily point to a super strong economy like the Fed members keep saying it is. So where does that? Next thing. So the next thing we got has to do with foreclosures. So I want to talk about this real quick because I saw this headline. And I just want to touch upon it. CNBC Diana Olick had this article the other day about new foreclosures jump 20% in October, a sign of more distress in the housing market. And this is true. They did jump 20% in October. But again, just remember you could play some games with numbers like this where these were coming off really, really low numbers. So let's go back go back to 2008, and you can see these are the first half of the year, the average how many foreclosure filings happened. And as you can see, there have been a really low levels since the pandemic. 2021, you weren't even allowed to do them. So that would be obviously it's going to go up by 100,000 the next year and so forth. So we're at about 187,000 now. And you go back to 2017, and that's 428. So you go back to 2018, 362. So again, not good if anybody's filing for a foreclosure, but still way below previous numbers. So just don't let yourself or your clients get scared away from buying a house when they see this doom and gloom kind of headline out of the mainstream media saying, "Oh, foreclosures are so far up." There are still way below what we were used to in this industry, before the pandemic. So just something to keep in mind there. Next thing we got was October existing home sales. So this showed a small increase, which is good to see. Um, Home prices went up slightly, they're about 0.7 month over month, 2.1% for the year. Inventory did drop slightly, but that's kind of normal this time of year. I know people take their, don't want to have their house listed over the winter when there's less people looking and so forth. So again, this was probably people shopping in August. These are homes that closed in the month of October. So rates hadn't really come down that much quite yet. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as we go forward. Next thing, the NAR forecast. So this was actually some positive news. NAR, the National Association of Realtors, came out and said that they see sales increasing by about 14% in 2026, and they see prices going up, houses appreciating about 4% across the country. They see rates going down to about 6%, where, we'll talk about this right now. We're at about the average conventional rate's about 6.36. So that would be coming down, a little bit less than a half a point. So that would be great to see. So overall, again, that's all tied to rates. What's going to happen in the economy? Is the Fed going to cut? All that kind of stuff. So if rates do come down, NAR sees, an increase in activity, which is good to see. Important dates coming up. We got that February 10th, December 10th. Trying to get through the holidays already, I guess. December 10th, we have that Fed meeting. Like I said, they're not going to release another BLS jobs report until December 15th. So they won't have new jobs data before that meeting. So that's why right now it's about a 40% chance they'll cut rates and 60% chance they will not cut rates. However, obviously things can happen in the economy to change things. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that. But right now, at about 3 weeks out, again, December 10th will be that date. It's looking like no cut, which hopefully, fingers crossed, something happens to change that, because obviously we want them to cut as soon as possible so mortgage rates keep coming down. If anybody needs anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, have a great week, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.